So those little whispers inside, those fleeting feelings maybe, or just inklings that seem to pop up.
Out of nowhere sometimes.
Exactly. And we've been looking into this whole idea that maybe they're not just random noise.
Right, that they could actually be meaningful signals from somewhere deeper inside us.
Yeah, and this deep dive is kind of our way to maybe get a shortcut to understanding what those subtle nudges might really be about for ourselves.
And it's fascinating, isn't it, to think that these feelings, the ones we so often just dismiss,
Yeah, too easily.
might actually hold really important information. We've been exploring how certain approaches like Gestalt therapy view this.
Okay.
It really emphasizes the wisdom that's right here in our immediate experience. That includes things that feel like, well, premonitions or just strong gut feelings.
Good feelings, yeah.
It's about learning how we can actually tune into that deeper awareness we all have.
Let's ground this a bit. Picture this, okay. You're sitting there maybe at your desk, about to make an important call or send a big email. And suddenly you just stop. You hesitate. There's no obvious reason, no logic saying don't do this, just this.
Yeah.
Little feeling like, wait, does that sound familiar at all?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That hesitation is so incredibly common.
Right.
And our first instinct usually is just to push past it. Tell ourselves, oh, I'm just being silly, or I'm procrastinating, or I just need to get this done.
Yeah, override it.
Exactly. But the key thing, from this perspective we're exploring, is the power in simply noticing that feeling, that hesitation, without immediately judging it or trying to figure it out or push it away.
It's just noticing.
Just acknowledging what's actually present for you right in that moment, the feeling itself.
And it's like, when we ignore them, these feelings, they don't just vanish, do they?
Not at all. They can
Right.
sort of get stuck, linger, maybe show up later as this vague sense of unease or maybe even physical tension somewhere in your body.
Can you think of a time maybe you did that? Brushed aside a gut feeling and maybe felt it pop up later?
Definitely. It reminds me of a story about someone, let's call her Anna.
Okay.
She often felt this kind of background hum of being stuck, and she'd have these weird, unsettling feelings she'd just label as anxiety.
And try to ignore.
Exactly. So she'd plan this trip with a friend, and as it got closer, this feeling of unease just kept growing, but she kept explaining it away, oh, it's just stress from work, I really need this break, nothing specific.
Rationalizing it.
Totally. But that feeling, well, it turned out there was something to it, wasn't there?
Yeah, tell me about that.
Well, on the trip itself, Anna just sensed her friend was off,
Yeah.
distant. When she tried to talk, really connect, her friend seemed evasive, kind of brushed her off. The whole weekend just felt strained. Anna left feeling pretty confused and a bit hurt. It wasn't until weeks later, actually, that her friend finally opened up. She admitted she'd been going through a really tough breakup right before the trip and just hadn't wanted to burden Anna with it.
I see.
And that's when Anna had this aha moment. She realized her initial feelings, that unease she'd felt before the trip.
They were real signals.
They were valid signals. They weren't just random anxiety. She picked up on something subtle, but she dismissed it. The real takeaway is those feelings weren't just noise.
Wow. It's incredible how easily we do that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Talk ourselves out of our own instincts.
It really is. Our rational mind jumps in and says, nope, doesn't make sense, move along.
Yeah. And this idea of avoidance came up in what we were looking at, how it's kind of a protective thing we do.
Exactly. Avoidance is often a strategy, maybe unconscious, maybe not, to steer clear of something uncomfortable, uncertainty, difficult feelings. But the problem is, if we consistently ignore these inner signals, it creates this gap, a disconnect between what we're genuinely feeling deep down and what we allow ourselves to actually acknowledge.
Right.
And the really important insight here is that acknowledging these feelings, especially the uncomfortable ones, is actually what brings us closer to understanding ourselves, not further away.
And that connects to another idea, right? This concept of unfinished business from Gestalt.
Yes, absolutely. Unfinished business refers to those unresolved emotions, maybe past experiences, that are still sort of active within us, even if we're not consciously thinking about them.
Okay.
And they can surface, they can bubble up as these intuitive feelings, these hunches, these signals we're talking about.
So it's not just if we have these feelings, but what we actually do with them, how we respond.
That's the crucial distinction. And the invitation here is really powerful, I think. It's simply this. The next time you notice one of those signals, that subtle nudge, that hesitation, that gut feeling, just pause.
Let's stop for a second.
Yeah, don't immediately jump to explain it away or dismiss it. Just pause, take a breath, and gently ask yourself, what might this be trying to tell me?
Just asking the question.
Just asking. That simple act of pausing and questioning with genuine curiosity can open up a whole different level of self-awareness.
And it's not just a head thing, is it? Not just thinking about it. It's about feeling it in your body, too.
Oh, absolutely essential. Where do you actually feel that sensation? Is it a tightness in your chest? A fluttering in your stomach? A heaviness? A lightness? Just noticing the physical quality of it without judging it as good or bad. Just being with the feeling for a moment. Not trying to fix it or solve it instantly.
Just letting it be there.
Letting it be, because our bodies, they often hold a kind of wisdom that our conscious minds haven't quite caught up with yet.
That's a great way to put it.
These gut feelings, these premonitions, they can really be like messages from a deeper part of ourselves, a part that might have access to information or insights that haven't been fully processed intellectually. The key thing to remember is your body is a huge source of information. Don't ignore it.
Okay, so we've noticed the signal. We've paused. We've maybe felt where it is in our body. Now what? How do we start to, decode these messages? You mentioned something called the cycle of experience.
Yes, the cycle of experience in Gestalt is a really useful map for understanding how we naturally engage with anything really. Our inner world, the outer world.
How does it work?
It generally moves through stages. It starts with awareness, just noticing something. Then making contact with it, really connecting, then mobilizing energy towards it, then taking action, and finally reaching a sense of completion or withdrawal where the cycle closes.
Okay, that sounds straightforward.
It does, but here's the thing with these subtle signals. We often interrupt that cycle really, really early on, usually right at the awareness stage.
So we notice it,
right.
But
then we shut it down somehow. We don't let it move forward. And that leaves things feeling incomplete, unresolved. The core insight is that these interruptions stop us from fully understanding and responding to what's coming up inside.
Right. Going back to Anna, she had the awareness, that unease.
Exactly. She was aware, but she immediately interrupted the cycle by rationalizing it, explaining it away. She didn't make real contact with the feeling itself.
And you're saying that's super common?
Incredibly common. Think about it. How many times have you had that inner, maybe not, or that sense of resistance about something?
20.
But you pushed through anyway. You told yourself, oh, I'm just scared, or this is good for me, I should do it.
Yeah, overriding that initial signal.
We override them all the time, and the takeaway here is just to start noticing how often we might be doing that.
So what are some of the main ways we interrupt ourselves? We talked about a few common patterns, these mechanisms.
Well, yes, these interruption mechanisms.
Yeah.
They're like habitual ways we stop the flow of experience. One big one is minimization.
Downplaying it.
Exactly. Oh, it's probably nothing. I'm just tired, that's all. It's not a big deal. We make the feeling smaller than it is.
Okay, what else?
Then there's intellectualization. That's when we try to explain away the feeling with logic.
Like Anna did.
Precisely. There's no logical reason to feel anxious about this trip, so I must be wrong. We stay in our heads analyzing instead of feeling.
Got it. And projection was another one.
Yes, projection. That's when we unconsciously attribute our own feelings or thoughts to someone else.
So instead of feeling uneasy yourself, you think, wow, they seem really stressed out today.
Exactly. It locates the feeling outside of ourselves. And then, of course, there's good old avoidance.
The classic distraction. Phone scrolling.
Phone scrolling, getting busy, changing the subject, anything to just not feel what's arising in that moment.
It's important to understand, though, that these aren't necessarily bad, right? They probably helped us at some point.
That's a crucial point. These mechanisms often start as adaptive ways to protect ourselves from pain, overwhelm, or discomfort. Maybe they helped us cope in childhood or difficult situations.
Okay.
But the issue is when they become our automatic default way of responding to everything. When they become rigid habits, that's when they create that real distance from our feelings and ultimately distance from ourselves.
And that disconnect can really impact us.
It absolutely can. The key insight is realizing that while these mechanisms might offer temporary relief, they prevent deeper self-understanding and authentic connection in the long run.
This leads into another Gestalt idea, doesn't it? Phenomenology. The idea that basically everything that pops into our awareness means something.
Exactly that. It's the perspective that whatever arises in our field of awareness, a thought, a feeling, a sensation, an image, is significant. It's data. It's not just random mental clutter.
So these signals, these feelings, aren't just glitches in the system.
Not at all. They're shaped by our whole being, our personal history, our relationships, our current needs, maybe needs that aren't being met. They're often connected to past experiences, maybe those unresolved, unfinished businesses things we talked about that are still asking for attention.
Like a recurring dream, maybe?
Hmm.
It keeps coming back because there's something there to look at.
That's a perfect analogy. A recurring dream often holds symbolic meaning tied to our inner world, something unresolved. The core takeaway is that these seemingly small feelings are actually woven into the larger fabric of our life story and inner landscape.
So these gut feelings, these premonitions, they could be tied into that fabric too, linked to past stuff.
It's a very strong possibility. They don't just appear in a vacuum. And this leads us to a really practical and helpful Gestalt tool, staying with the figure.
Okay, what's the figure?
The figure is simply whatever is most prominent in your awareness right now, whatever stands out from the background. It could be that feeling of unease, a physical tightness, a recurring thought.
So instead of pushing it away,
You gently turn your attention towards it. You explore it with curiosity. The key insight is that by paying gentle, non-judgmental attention to what's already present, we allow deeper understanding and meaning to emerge naturally.
and how do we explore it? Like, what do we do?
You can ask yourself simple, open-ended questions like, where do I feel this most strongly in my body? What qualities does this feeling have? Is it sharp, dull, heavy, light? Does this feeling remind me of anything? Any past situations? Or even, and this can be powerful, if this feeling, this sensation had a voice, what might it be saying right now?
Wow, that requires some patience, though, not jumping to conclusions.
Absolutely. Patience and creating a safe inner space for exploration. It's not about finding the right answer immediately. It's about the process of listening inwardly.
Let's go back to Anna again. How did this play out for her? Did she stay with the figure?
Well, maybe not consciously at first, but eventually, yes. When she allowed herself, perhaps later in therapy, to really focus on that persistent unease she felt before the trip, it wasn't an instant aha.
Right.
But by staying with the physical sensations, maybe a heaviness in her chest, eventually other feelings started to emerge. Sadness surfaced. And then the realization hit her. She wasn't just anxious about the trip, she was actually avoiding her own fear that something was wrong in the friendship itself.
Ah, so staying with the initial feeling opened a door to something deeper.
Exactly. The key takeaway is that allowing ourselves to truly feel what's there, even if it's uncomfortable, can unlock these deeper layers of truth.
And from there, we looked at the idea of contact in Gestalt. What does that mean exactly?
Contact is about the quality of connection we have with our present experience, with ourselves, with others, with our environment. It can be strong, vibrant, alive, or it can be weak, dull, diffused, maybe when we're pulling away or shutting down.
So constantly dismissing these intuitive feelings that weakens our contact with ourselves.
Absolutely. It weakens that connection. And it creates what Gestalt calls defenses. These are ways we protect ourselves from experiencing potential pain, vulnerability, or discomfort.
Like Anna's rationalizing. That was a defense.
Precisely. Her intellectualization was a defense against feeling the fear and sadness about her friendship. The crucial insight here is that while these defenses were likely adaptive at one point they helped us survive, they can become outdated and limit our ability to connect authentically with ourselves and with life now.
Which brings us to another really important concept: responsibility. And it's key to remember, this isn't about blame, right?
Not at all about blame. In Gestalt, responsibility means owning our experience, owning our feelings, our choices, our responses. It's about shifting our perspective.
From what to what?
From that feeling of being a passive victim, like, why is this happening to me?
Right.
To a more empowered stance. Okay, this is happening. What is my experience right now? What might this situation, this feeling, be trying to teach me about myself?
That's a huge shift.
It's fundamental. It reframes these signals, these premonitions, not as scary external forces, but as valuable internal information, as invitations for growth, for healing, for understanding.
It moves us from being passive to active.
Exactly. Active participants in our own lives. Each feeling, each intuition is a piece of data about who we are and where we might need to pay attention. Ignoring it just delays the response, and sometimes that delay can lead to bigger issues down the road. The key insight is that taking responsibility for our inner world empowers us.
We also heard about Mark's story. He was someone who really struggled with trusting his gut, didn't he? Especially with big decisions.
Yes, Mark often found himself second-guessing his strong intuitions. He'd feel something strongly, but then his analytical mind would take over.
And there was that promotion.
Right. He was offered this promotion, On paper, it looked amazing. More money, more status, ticked all the career boxes. But deep down, something just felt wrong. Off. He couldn't quite articulate why.
A classic gut feeling.
A classic gut feeling.
Right.
But despite that strong internal no, he overrode it. He reasoned it away, told himself he was just afraid of the new challenge, that it was illogical not to take it.
And how did that turn out?
Well, unfortunately, taking the promotion led to a really difficult time for Mark. The role was incredibly stressful, the hours were brutal, and it started negatively impacting his health, his relationships, everything.
Oh, dear.
Yeah. And eventually, after hitting a low point, he had to admit that his initial feeling, that gut sense that it was wrong, was actually spot on. The role just wasn't aligned with who he was or what he truly valued.
Wow. That's a tough lesson.
A tough but valuable one. His experience really highlights that critical takeaway. Ignoring our deep intuition can lead us down paths that are fundamentally out of sync with our well-being and our deeper needs.
And it also shows that learning to trust ourselves isn't instant, it's a practice.
It absolutely is a practice. It requires attention and courage. Mark learned the hard way about honoring his own limits and trusting his inner wisdom, even when external factors seem to point elsewhere.
So it really does keep coming back to this core invitation, doesn't it? To pause.
Yeah.
To be present with those subtle signals when they arise.
Yes.
And to gently, curiously ask those deeper questions. What might I be avoiding here? What am I trying to protect myself from, perhaps? What does this feeling really want me to see or understand?
Exactly. These fleeting moments, these hesitations, these gut feelings, they aren't interruptions to get past. They're actually potential doorways into a deeper connection with ourselves.
Okay, so once we've maybe noticed a signal, paused, explored it a bit, the next step is figuring out what to do with that awareness.
Right. That's where the integration happens, where we move from just noticing to actually responding. That's where you could say the real work begins.
And this ties back to closing the cycle of experience, making it complete.
Precisely. Closing the cycle isn't just about having the awareness, it's about engaging with that awareness, honoring it, finding even a small way to integrate what you've learned or felt into your actions or choices.
It creates movement.
It creates movement, exactly. It resolves that inner tension. Think about Anna again. Once she became aware of her underlying fear and sadness about the friendship, she acted on it. She chose to have that difficult, honest conversation with her friend. She shared her feelings, vulnerably.
And that completed the cycle for her.
In that instance, yes. It led to a deeper understanding, a stronger connection, a clearing of the air. That act of expressing her truth, aligned with her inner awareness, brought a sense of completion. The key insight is that completing the cycle brings our inner world and outer actions into greater harmony.
So it's about creating alignment between awareness and reality, choices and values.
Present moment and deeper truth, yes.
But what if the signal isn't clear? What if you explore it and it still feels kind of murky or ambiguous?
That's completely normal. That happens all the time. It's a very real part of this process. Sometimes the message isn't a clear instruction to do X.
So what could it be then?
Sometimes the message is simply about seeing something more clearly, acknowledging a dynamic, a pattern, a feeling that you hadn't fully recognized before. The action might simply be internal, the shift in perspective itself.
Okay, and even with Mark, who felt he made a mistake by ignoring his intuition about the job.
Exactly. Even though that initial choice led to difficulty, the experience itself became a profound teacher.
Right.
It clarified his values. It showed him undeniably the importance of listening to his inner compass, even when it defied logic or external pressure. That learning, that deeper self-understanding, was the completion in a way.
So working with these signals, it doesn't always mean a neat and tidy resolution right away.
Not necessarily, but it should always lead towards deeper self-awareness and understanding, even if the path forward isn't immediately obvious.
Are there any guiding principles, maybe, for when things feel unclear? How to move forward then?
Yes, there are definitely some helpful attitudes or principles to cultivate. First, honor the signal. Acknowledge its presence even if you don't understand it. Don't dismiss it just because it's confusing.
Okay, honor it. What else?
Experiment with small actions. If the signal relates to a situation or relationship, maybe test the waters with a small change in behavior or communication and see what happens. Observe the results.
Like dipping a toe in.
Exactly. Also, stay curious. Approach your experience with open-ended questions, not demands for instant answers. What else might be here? What happens if I just stay with this feeling a bit longer?
Keep exploring.
Keep exploring. And, crucially, trust your body. Pay attention to those physical sensations. Tension, release, lightness, heaviness. Your body often knows things before your mind does.
Right. Listen to the physical feedback.
And finally, embrace imperfection. This isn't about getting it right all the time. View any missteps or confusing moments not as failures, but as valuable learning opportunities on the path to self-discovery.
That takes the pressure off.
It really does. Ultimately, this whole process, this way of engaging with ourselves, is about reclaiming our agency, our personal power.
Moving away from just reacting.
Yes. Shifting from feeling like life is just happening to us to actively participating in shaping our experiences in a way that feels true and authentic.
In tuning into these signals, it fosters a different kind of relationship with ourselves, doesn't it?
A much deeper intimacy, I think. With our emotions, our instincts, our deepest truths, it encourages us to take responsibility for our well-being, not out of obligation, but out of genuine self-care and self-compassion.
And it's ongoing, isn't it? It's not like you figure it out once and you're done.
Absolutely not. It's a continuous journey. Life will keep presenting new signals, new feelings, new moments of choice, new opportunities for growth, and deeper alignment.
So we can learn to see these feelings, these premonitions or gut instincts, not as problems to be solved, but maybe as allies.
What a wonderful way to put it. Yes,
Yeah.
as allies guiding us gently towards greater wholeness, greater authenticity.
And really listening to them, honoring them. It's fundamentally an act of self-worth, isn't it?
It truly is. It's an act of self-trust. It's saying, I believe there is wisdom within me and I'm willing to listen.
So maybe a final thought for everyone listening to really sit with is this. What could actually happen? What might unfold in your life if you started to truly trust these inner signals? Not blindly maybe, but with real curiosity and care.
That's a profound question to carry, isn't it? It touches on how much we allow that inner knowing to guide us versus external validation or logic alone.
Yeah.
And while trusting ourselves doesn't magically make uncertainty disappear, life is still uncertain.
Of course.
It does seem to unlock a different kind of freedom, the freedom to choose based on what feels genuinely right for us, the freedom to grow, to learn from experiences, and to live a life that feels more authentically ours.
So the invitation seems to be to just gently lean in. Lean into the discomfort sometimes, into the not knowing.
Exactly. Lean in and embrace the possibility that these little nudges, these fleeting feelings, these gut instincts, they might actually be profound invitations to discover more of who you really are.
Because ultimately, the wisdom, the answers we're often searching for outside.
They're often already right here, within us, just waiting patiently to be heard, waiting for us to listen.